Let's deep dive into a mind-blowing YouTube podcast created by artificial intelligence, where you will hear conversations by two AI agents in a way you've never imagined before. This isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the future, crafted by AI, designed for you. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's begin.
Hey everyone, ready to dive into something we all do but rarely give much thought to?
Let me guess. Sleeping?
Nope. Closer though, we're talking breathing.
Breathing. The thing that keeps us alive. Kind of important.
Exactly. But we're going way deeper than just the in and out.
Deeper. Like, what? Holding our breath for, like, world records.
Not quite, though we'll touch on that too. Today's deep dive is all about how we can use our breath. Like, really use it for our health, our minds, even how we perform.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are we getting all this wisdom from?
Our guide is James Nestor's book, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art.
Interesting. So what's the big secret? Is there like a magic breathing pattern we should all be doing?
You could say that. But first, let's talk about how modern life has kind of messed with our natural breathing.
Messed with it. How so?
Well, get this. Nestor compares ancient skulls to modern ones.
Skulls.
Yeah. And you'd think, with all our fancy technology, we'd have it all figured out. But turns out, our ancestors, wider jaws, straighter teeth, and, believe it or not, better airways.
Huh. Better airways. You'd think it'd be the other way around, right? With all our modern dentistry and whatnot.
Right, but think about it. If your airways are narrower, your breathing isn't as efficient.
And that means?
Less oxygen getting to your body. And over time, that can lead to a whole bunch of problems.
Makes sense. But isn't breathing, like, automatic? Like, we don't have to think about it? It just happens.
Yeah, but here's where it gets wild. Nestor decided to test this whole breathing thing out.
How?
He spent 10 days breathing only through his mouth.
Only through his mouth. Ugh. Sounds stuffy.
I know, right? But the results were crazy. His blood pressure went through the roof, he snored like a chainsaw, and felt totally foggy, exhausted all the time.
Yikes. So what you're saying is I should probably pay more attention to how I breathe.
Definitely. Especially that nose breathing thing. It's more important than we think.
Right. It's not just about getting air in. It's about, what was it? Warming the air?
That and filtering it, and get this, it boosts your body's natural defenses. Like, your nose is this incredible air processing machine.
Huh. And we've just been, ignoring it, taking it for granted.
Totally. But there's more. Did you know that breathing through your nose increases something called nitric oxide?
Nitric oxide. Rings a bell.
It widens blood vessels, improves blood flow, helps your immune system, all that good stuff. And nasal breathing increases it, like, 6 times.
Wow. Just by breathing through your nose, that's pretty amazing.
It is. It's like a secret weapon we've all had this whole time, right under our noses. Literally.
So nose breathing. Got it. What else did Nestor find out?
Well, buckle up, because this next part is super intriguing. Apparently, there's an optimal breathing rhythm.
A rhythm? You mean like a beat?
Kind of. It's about 5.5 breaths per minute.
Really? There's a magic number. I never even thought about counting my breath.
Me neither. But it turns out there's a reason for it. It's called the resonance frequency of your cardiovascular system.
Okay, you lost me. What's that?
Basically, it's like your heart and lungs are vibing together perfectly at that pace.
Interesting. So by breathing at this rhythm, we're like syncing up with our bodies.
Exactly. It's called coherent breathing. And it's linked to, like, reduced anxiety, better focus, and even a healthier heart.
Okay, now you're talking. I could definitely use a little less anxiety and a little more focus in my life.
Right. Who couldn't? But here's the thing. It's not just about counting to 5.5 every time you breathe. Nestor talks about all sorts of breathing techniques to maximize the benefits.
Techniques? Like what?
Like, have you ever heard of diaphragmatic breathing?
Maybe.
Hmm.
It rings a bell? Is that like deep belly breaths?
Yep. That's the one. But it's about more than just taking big breath. It's about using your diaphragm, that big muscle under your lungs, to really increase your lung capacity.
So it's not just how much air you take in, it's how you take it in.
Exactly. And then there's this other method called the Buteyko method.
Buteyko. Never heard of it.
It's a bit different. It actually involves holding your breath and reducing your breathing volume.
Wait, what? Hold my breath. That sounds a little counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does. But stick with me on this one. The idea is that a lot of us are actually overbreathing, which messes with the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our bodies.
So the Buteyko method is about finding that balance.
You got it. And it can have some pretty amazing effects on your health.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Tell me more about this Buteyko method. Like, how does it actually work? What do you do?
Well, it's about taking smaller breaths, almost like you're sipping air, and gradually increasing your tolerance for carbon dioxide.
Sipping air. Interesting. And what about the breath holds? How long do you have to hold your breath?
It's not about pushing yourself to the limit. It's about gradually increasing the duration of your breath holds to retrain your body,
Retrain it to do what?
to become more comfortable with higher levels of CO2, which can actually help you absorb oxygen better.
Wow. This is blowing my mind. Breathing is way more complex than I thought.
Right. It's not just about filling your lungs, it's about finding that balance, that sweet spot.
I'm starting to see that. So we've got Buteyko, which is about less breathing. And it sounds like there are a bunch of other techniques out there, too.
There are, and as we dig deeper into Nestor's work, we'll uncover even more fascinating stuff, like the Wim Hof method.
Wim Hof. That's the ice bath guy, right?
The one and only.
Yeah.
It involves some pretty wild breathing exercises, and yes, those famous ice baths.
Okay, now that's something I got to hear more about. Ice baths and breathing. Sign me up. Welcome back. So, ice baths, huh? You know, before we get to that, I think we should circle back to that Buteyko method for a second. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Like, how does breathing less actually help?
It is pretty mind-blowing, right? It goes against everything we think we know about, like deep breathing and all that.
Exactly. Isn't a deep breath supposed to be, like, good for you, relaxing?
Well, according to Buteyko, not always. He says that a lot of us are actually overbreathing, like chronically.
Overbreathing.
Yeah, and that can mess with the balance of oxygen and, carbon dioxide in our bodies.
Right, CO2. But isn't that like a waste product, the stuff we breathe out?
We tend to think of it that way. But remember how we talked about nitric oxide?
Yeah, the stuff that's boosted by nose breathing?
Right. Well, CO2 actually plays a big role in how our bodies use oxygen.
Really? I had no idea. Tell me more about that.
It's kind of complicated, but basically, higher CO2 levels in our blood actually make it easier for oxygen to get to our tissues.
So when we overbreathe, we're messing with that balance.
Exactly. And that can lead to all sorts of issues like constricted airways, more mucus, even anxiety.
Wow. So the Buteyko method is about correcting that imbalance.
You got it. By reducing our breathing volume and kind of retraining our bodies to handle a bit more CO2.
Okay, so how do we do that? Like, what's the technique?
Well, one thing is to focus on taking smaller breaths, almost like imagine you're just sipping the air.
Sipping air. Got it. Makes sense. And what about the breath holds?
It's not about holding your breath for like minutes at a time. It's about gradually increasing how long you can comfortably hold it.
So like training my lungs.
Exactly. To be more comfortable with that CO2, which in the end can actually help you absorb oxygen better.
Wild. Okay. So Buteyko, less is more. Now let's switch gears completely. Tell me about this Wim Hof guy.
Oh man, Wim Hof, he's a whole other level. Remember we talked about pushing boundaries?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Hit me with the Wim Hof method. What is it exactly?
Oh, it's this combination of controlled hyperventilation, holding your breath, and then, you guessed it, cold exposure.
Ice baths.
Yep. Wim Hof believes that by doing these things, we can tap into some serious inner power, like healing power.
Healing from what?
All sorts of stuff. Plus, building up our resilience, boosting our immune system. He's all about pushing those limits.
Makes sense. I mean, the guy climbed Mount Everest in shorts.
Right. He's called the Iceman for a reason. But the Wim Hof method isn't just about superhuman feats. It's about anyone tapping into that potential.
Okay, I'm listening. But how does it actually work? Like, what's the science behind all the weird breathing and ice baths?
Well, the breathing part is interesting. It's about taking these rapid, deep breaths and then holding your breath. And it actually changes the pH levels in your body.
pH, like the acid-base stuff.
Exactly. And making your blood more alkaline is thought to have a bunch of benefits, like reducing inflammation and giving you more energy.
Interesting. So what's the deal with the breath holding?
That's where you really start to train your body. You get used to having less oxygen, which actually makes you more resilient to stress, and you focus better too.
Huh. So it's kind of like the Buteyko method in a way, like pushing your comfort zone, teaching your body to handle different conditions.
Yeah, there are definitely similarities there. And then we add in the cold exposure.
Right. The infamous ice baths. Why the cold?
Well, it's thought to activate your body's natural defenses. Like it triggers adrenaline and other hormones that boost your immune system, improve circulation.
So it's like giving your body a shock to wake it up.
Something like that. It's not the most comfortable thing, but a lot of people say they feel amazing afterwards, energized, refreshed.
I can see that. But is there any, like, scientific proof that this stuff works? Or is it all, like, anecdotal?
Actually, more and more research is being done on the Wim Hof method, and the results are pretty fascinating.
Oh, like what?
For example, one study found that people who practice the method could actually influence their immune response.
Seriously. We can control our immune systems.
It seems that way. And there are other studies showing it can reduce inflammation, help you sleep better, even manage some autoimmune conditions.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to understand the hype. It's like a hack for your body.
It kind of is. So we've got Guteko, all about breathing less, Wim Hof, pushing those limits. But what about something a little more, I don't know, everyday?
Every day.
Yeah, something easy to incorporate into like a normal routine.
I get you. Well, there's box breathing. Navy SEALs use it.
Oh, yeah. Box breathing. Sounds intense, though, doesn't it? Like something you do underwater.
It's actually super simple. It's all about finding a rhythm. You inhale for a count, hold for a count, exhale for a count, hold again.
So it's like a square with your breath.
Exactly. And this helps regulate your heart rate variability, which is basically how adaptable your nervous system is.
Adaptable, like able to handle stress better.
Exactly. When you're stressed, your heart rate goes crazy, your breathing gets all messed up. Box breathing helps calm all that down.
So it's like a quick reset for your system.
Yep. Helps manage stress, focus better, perform better under pressure.
Wow. It's incredible how just changing your breathing can have such a huge effect on your whole body and mind.
It is. And box breathing is so easy to learn, you can do it anywhere.
Okay, I'm adding that to my to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
But, we've talked about a lot of techniques now, but Tycho, Wim Hof, box breathing, are there any that are specifically designed for, like, peak performance, say, for athletes or musicians?
Absolutely. But before we get into those, I think it's important to understand how our breathing is connected to our nervous system.
Okay, back to science class. Remind me, what's the nervous system again?
You've got the central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord. And then you've got the peripheral nervous system. That's all the nerves that branch out from your spinal cord to the rest of your body.
Right. So where does breathing fit in?
Breathing is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. That's the part that controls all the automatic stuff, like your heartbeat, digestion.
Oh, the stuff we don't have to think about.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Your breath is one of the few things you can consciously control that can actually influence your autonomic nervous system.
Wait, really? So I can, like, change my breathing and it'll affect my heart rate and stuff?
You got it. And by changing your breathing, you can shift your body from fight or flight mode to rest and digest mode.
So it's like a hack to, like, control my stress levels.
Exactly. And that's where these performance-enhancing breathing techniques come in.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these techniques.
One that's really popular with athletes is called cyclical sighing. It's where you take 2 inhales, 1 short, 1 long, and then a long exhale.
2 inhales. I've never heard of that.
It's a specific pattern that helps stimulate your vagus nerve.
Vagus nerve.
Yeah, it's a big part of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system.
So doing these cyclical sighs is like telling my body to chill out.
Exactly. And that's super helpful for athletes before a big game or to recover after a tough workout.
Makes sense. Anything else that targets that vagus nerve?
There's resonance breathing, which is about slowing your breath down to about 6 breaths per minute.
Wait, 6 breaths per minute. That sounds familiar.
It's very similar to the coherent breathing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You're basically finding that sweet spot where your breath, your heart rate, and your blood pressure are all in sync.
Synchronized. It's amazing how all these techniques seem to be about getting everything working together,
It is. And the more we learn about how our breath, heart rate, and nervous system are all connected, the better we can use these techniques to perform at our best.
Not just in sports, right?
Right, in everything we do.
Man, this is fascinating. So we've covered a ton of ground here. Bitoko, Wim Hof, box breathing, cyclical sighing, resonance breathing. And we've learned that breathing can have a huge impact on our physical and mental state.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? How much power we have just by changing the way we breathe.
Totally. But before we get into even more techniques, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore how all this connects to ancient wisdom and practices, and how modern science is validating what those ancient traditions knew all along. And we're back. We've covered so much ground already. Modern breathing problems, nose breathing, all those cool techniques. It's a lot to take in.
It is. Breathing is way more complex than most people realize.
Totally. But now I'm really curious about that connection to ancient practices. Like yoga, qigong, all that stuff. They've been talking about the power of breath for centuries.
Exactly. They've always understood that mind-body connection, how breathing can, boost your health, your energy, even your spiritual side.
So What does science have to say about all that? Is there any proof that these ancient practices actually work?
Actually, yeah, more and more research is showing that traditions like yoga and meditation have real benefits.
Like what?
Less stress, better sleep, a stronger immune system.
Hmm.
The list goes on. It's like science is finally catching up to what these ancient cultures knew all along.
It's about time. So, is this all tied back to that vagus nerve we talked about?
Definitely. A lot of ancient breathing techniques are all about stimulating the vagus nerve, which helps you relax and de-stress.
Right. We saw that with the cyclical sighing and resonance breathing. Are there similar things in yoga or qigong?
Absolutely. In yoga, there's pranayama, which is all about controlling your breath to regulate your energy.
Yeah.
Lots of pranayama techniques, like alternate nostril breathing, directly affect the vagus nerve.
So there's more to yoga than just the poses.
Way more. And in Qigong, they focus on cultivating qi, which is like vital energy, and they do that through breathing exercises.
Okay, so these ancient practices have a lot to teach us, but where do we even begin? There's so many techniques.
It can feel overwhelming, right?
Right.
But the good news is you don't have to be a master to benefit. Just becoming aware of your breath is a huge first step.
Aware, like how?
Just take a moment throughout your day and notice your breath. Are you breathing through your nose, your mouth? Is it shallow, deep? Are your shoulders tense? Just by paying attention, you're already on your way to more mindful breathing.
Makes sense. We're so used to just going through life on autopilot, not even thinking about how we breathe.
Exactly. And once you start paying attention, you can try some easy techniques, like just slowing down your breathing can make a huge difference.
Slow it down. How slow?
Aim for about 6 breaths per minute. That's that magic number that activates the vagus nerve and helps you relax.
6 breaths. Okay, I can try that. Any other simple ones?
Box breathing is great. Remember, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. All equal sides, easy to do anywhere.
Right. Box breathing. Got it.
And if you want to explore a bit more, try alternate nostril breathing from yoga. It's awesome for balancing your energy and calming your mind.
I'm feeling empowered already. Like, we really do have so much control over how we feel just by changing how we breathe.
We do. And the best part is, breathing is free. It's always there, ready to help us feel better, live better.
It's like we've had this amazing tool all along and we never knew how to use it.
That's a great way to put it. And I think James Nestor's book really opens our eyes to the power of our breath.
He does. So as we wrap up our deep dive into breathing, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Remember, your breath is your anchor. It's always there, and it can transform your health, your mind, your whole life. Pay attention to it, learn some techniques, and you can unlock a whole new level of well-being.
Beautiful. So deep divers, breathe deep, explore, and discover the amazing potential within you. Thanks for joining us.